The crystal spires of the Galactic Council chambers reached toward the artificial star that lit New Geneva Station. Within those gleaming towers, representatives from 2,000 species gathered to discuss matters of trade, territory, and the endless politics that kept the galaxy functioning. Today's session focused on the newest applicants for council membership, a species calling themselves humans from a small blue world on the galaxy's outer rim. Commander HFY of the Valorian Defense Corps stood at the observation deck, watching the proceedings through the transparent aluminum walls. His forearms crossed in a gesture of mild annoyance, while his scaled hide shifted from blue to purple, a sure sign of his growing impatience. As one of the most decorated war veterans in galactic history, HFY had seen countless species rise and fall. These humans seemed no different from any other ambitious newcomers. The human delegation sat in the applicant section, looking remarkably unremarkable. They were bipedal, which was common enough. Their skin appeared soft and vulnerable, lacking natural armor, toxic glands, or even basic environmental adaptations. No claws, no fangs, no obvious weapons. Their representative, a female called Ambassador Chen, spoke in measured tones about trade agreements and peaceful cooperation. "Pathetic," muttered Krogar, the hegemony's military advisor, as he joined HFY at the observation window. The massive, bear-like alien's cybernetic implants glowed red as he studied the humans. Look at them. No natural defenses, no enhanced biology, no apparent military capability. What could such a weak species possibly offer the Council? HFY's attention drifted as Ambassador Chen continued her presentation. The humans claimed to come from a world they called Earth, describing it in terms that made several Council members visibly uncomfortable. High gravity, extreme weather variations, predators capable of hunting thinking beings, and natural disasters that would flatten most civilized worlds. Yet these soft-looking creatures claimed to not only survive, but thrive in such conditions. "Surely they exaggerate," whispered Thys, the Mentari trade commissioner. Her gossamer wings fluttered nervously as she spoke. No sentient species could evolve in such a hostile environment and remain so unarmored. The presentation continued with humans describing their culture and history. They spoke of something called sports, apparently recreational activities involving physical competition and risk. They mentioned concepts like extreme weather camping and adventure tourism, describing these as popular leisure activities. Several council members exchanged glances of disbelief. HFY found himself studying the human delegation more carefully. Their leader, Ambassador Chen, moved with an economy of motion that reminded him of trained soldiers. Her eyes swept the chamber constantly, cataloging exits and potential threats with the same unconscious habit he recognized in veteran warriors. The other humans displayed similar behavioral patterns, alert, aware, and subtly positioned to protect their leader. When the formal presentation ended, the Council began its standard evaluation process. Species after species voiced their assessments, most dismissing humanity as another minor civilization seeking protection under the Council's umbrella. The ethereal collective questioned whether humans possessed sufficient intelligence for membership. The Silicon Brotherhood doubted their technological capabilities. The hive minds wondered if individual-focused beings could function in galactic society. "Perhaps," suggested Councillor Vextar of the Hegemony, his mandibles clicking with amusement, "these humans could serve as a client species. Their soft appearance might make them suitable for service positions, hospitality, perhaps, or entertainment." A ripple of agreement passed through the chamber. Several council members nodded approvingly at what they perceived as a practical solution. Give the humans limited membership. Allow them to serve their betters, and everyone benefits from another source of cheap labor. HFY felt his scales flush deeper purple. Something about the human delegation's reaction bothered him. Instead of appearing grateful for this generous offer, their expressions had grown cold and distant. Ambassador Chen's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and her companions shifted in their seats with what he recognized as controlled anger. "The Council's offer is interesting," Ambassador Chen said finally, her voice carefully neutral. "However, humanity seeks full membership, not client status. We believe we have contributions to make beyond service industries." This declaration sparked immediate debate. How dare such an obviously inferior species reject the Council's generous offer? Several representatives voiced their outrage at human presumption. The collective demanded to know what possible contributions such primitives could make to galactic civilization. HFY watched Ambassador Chen stand slowly, her movements controlled and precise. "Honored counselors," she began, "humanity has survived and prospered in conditions that would destroy most species represented here. We have developed technologies, philosophies, and capabilities born from necessity. Perhaps most importantly, we have learned that survival requires not just intelligence or technology, but adaptability, determination, and the willingness to do whatever is necessary when facing extinction." The chamber fell silent at these words. It was Thais who finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "What exactly are you suggesting, Ambassador?" "I suggest," Chen replied, "that appearances can be deceiving, that soft skin does not mean weak spirit, that a species from a dangerous world might have developed dangerous capabilities." She paused, looking directly at HFY. "Perhaps someone here has experience with humans already. Perhaps someone knows that our appearance tells only part of our story." Every eye in the chamber turned to follow Chen's gaze. HFY felt his blood run cold as ancient memories stirred, memories he had buried deep from a time before his fame and decorations, from a mission that had gone horribly wrong in the depths of space. "Commander HFY," Counselor Vextar called out, "do you have experience with this species?" The chamber waited in absolute silence. HFY's scales had turned completely purple, then started shifting to the deep black that Valorians displayed only in times of extreme stress. His four hands clenched and unclenched as he struggled with memories that still haunted his sleep cycles. He began, then stopped. Around him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy waited for his words. The human delegation watched him with expressions that seemed almost sympathetic, as if they understood the weight of whatever knowledge he carried. Slowly, HFY descended from the observation deck to the main floor. Each step felt heavier than the last as he approached the speaker's podium. The ambient lighting seemed to dim as his presence filled the chamber with intention that had not been there moments before. "Honored counselors," he said finally, his voice carrying the weight of 15 years' silence. "I have indeed encountered humans before. It was an experience that changed my understanding of what constitutes strength in this galaxy." Ambassador Chen nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement that somehow conveyed both respect and warning. The rest of the human delegation remained motionless, but their attention felt like physical pressure against HFY's consciousness. "The encounter occurred during the Void War," he continued, "in a region of space now classified as off-limits to all galactic traffic. I was a young officer then, commanding a deep reconnaissance mission that went catastrophically wrong." The chamber had grown so quiet that the hum of life support systems seemed deafening. Even the most arrogant council members leaned forward, sensing that they were about to hear something significant. "What I learned in that place," HFY said, his scales now showing patterns of color no Valorian had displayed in recorded history, was that humanity possesses capabilities that do not show in their biology scans or cultural assessments. They have evolved traits that become apparent only under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. He looked directly at Ambassador Chen, whose slight nod confirmed his growing suspicion that this moment had been orchestrated, that somehow the humans had known he would be here. "The question before this council," HFY announced, "is not whether humanity deserves membership. The question is whether we can afford to have them as anything other than allies." The silence that followed his words stretched for long moments before erupting into chaos as every representative tried to speak at once. In the midst of the confusion, HFY caught Ambassador Chen's eye. Her expression held a mixture of approval and something else, perhaps anticipation for whatever truth he was about to reveal. As the council called for order, HFY realized that his quiet retirement was about to end. The humans had forced his hand, and now he would have to tell a story he had sworn never to repeat. A story that would change how the galaxy viewed the soft-skinned bipeds from Earth. The artificial star continued its slow progression across New Geneva Station's sky, but for HFY, it felt as though darkness was approaching. Not the darkness of night, but the darkness of memory, where humans had shown him capabilities that still defied explanation. In the visitors' gallery, other war veterans who had served in the Void War began to murmur among themselves. Several had gone pale, their species equivalents of shock registering as they realized what HFY was about to reveal. The humans had not chosen this council session randomly. They had known exactly who would be present and what their presence would force into the light. The game had begun, and humanity had just made their opening move. The council chambers had been hastily reconfigured for HFY's testimony. What had begun as a routine membership evaluation had transformed into something approaching a military tribunal. The most senior representatives remained, while junior staff and observers had been dismissed. The humans sat in absolute silence, their faces betraying nothing as they waited for the story that would determine their fate. Counselor Vextar activated the chamber's security protocols, ensuring that no recording devices could function and no signals could penetrate the room's defenses. "Commander HFY," he announced formally, "you may proceed with your classified testimony." HFY stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by the galaxy's most powerful beings. His scales had stabilized at a deep gray, the color Valorians displayed when confronting painful truths. He began to speak, his voice steady despite the memories that threatened to overwhelm him. 15 years ago, during the height of the Void War, I commanded the deep reconnaissance vessel Stellar Pride. Our mission was to investigate reports of an unknown species that had established settlements in the Kepler 442 system, well within the war zone. Command believed this species might serve as either allies or potential slave labor for the war effort. The assembled representatives shifted uncomfortably. The Void War had been a dark period in galactic history, when desperate measures became commonplace and moral considerations often took second place to military necessity. We approached their world, the planet they call Earth, with standard diplomatic protocols. Our scanners showed a Class M planet with remarkably high gravity and dangerous atmospheric conditions. The species that inhabited it appeared primitive by our standards. No energy shields protecting their cities, no orbital defense platforms, no apparent faster-than-light capability. HFY paused, his secondary arms gesturing in the Valorian equivalent of remembered shame. We decided to make contact through demonstration of superior force, a show of strength that would immediately establish the proper relationship between our advanced civilization and their primitive one. Ambassador Chen's expression remained neutral, but HFY noticed how her hands had moved to rest flat on the table before her. a subtle defensive posture that he had learned to recognize during his previous encounter with her species. The first indication that our assumptions were wrong came when we entered their system's outer perimeter. Our sensors detected no defensive installations, no patrol ships, nothing that suggested military preparedness. What we did not realize was that this apparent vulnerability was itself a trap. Krogar leaned forward, his cybernetic implants glowing brighter with interest. "What do you mean, a trap?" "The humans had been tracking our approach for weeks," HFY explained. "Their detection methods were so primitive that our sensors could not identify them as technological at all. They used techniques based on gravitational analysis, electromagnetic signature tracking, and behavioral prediction algorithms that were unprecedented." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. A species that could track military vessels without using detectable technology represented a level of strategic thinking that bordered on precognitive. We established orbit around their planet and transmitted Standard Contact Protocol 7, a message demanding immediate surrender and cooperation with galactic authority. The response we received was unexpected. HFY activated a small holographic display, showing a grainy image of a human face. The being appeared young by galactic standards, with the characteristic smooth skin and vulnerable appearance that marked their species. When it spoke, however, its voice carried an authority that made several council members flinch. "Unknown vessel," the hologram said, "you have entered the territorial space of the United Earth Defense Force. You have 60 seconds to state your intentions or be classified as hostile. This is your only warning." Theis's wings fluttered in agitation. "They threatened you? A primitive species threatened a Valorian battlecruiser?" "I thought exactly the same thing," HFY replied. "I ordered our weapons officer to fire a warning shot across their largest city, a demonstration that would show them the futility of resistance. The shot never reached its target." The holographic display shifted, showing tactical readouts from the Stellar Pride's weapon systems. Every representative in the chamber possessed enough military knowledge to understand what they were seeing, and what they saw was impossible. "Our plasma cannon discharged normally," HFY continued, "but the energy beams simply vanished. Not absorbed, not deflected, not blocked by any shield technology we could detect. It ceased to exist approximately 50 kilometers above their planetary surface." Counselor Vextar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. What defensive technology could produce such an effect? That was precisely what I demanded to know. I opened a direct communication channel and threatened to deploy our full arsenal unless they immediately explained their defensive capabilities. The human who responded identified herself as Admiral Sarah Chen. Every eye in the chamber turned to Ambassador Chen, whose family resemblance to the figure in HFY's hologram was unmistakable. She nodded slightly, confirming the relationship without speaking. "Admiral Chen invited me to transport down to their planet's surface for a face-to-face meeting," HFY continued. "She guaranteed my safety and offered to demonstrate their defensive capabilities in a controlled environment. My tactical officer advised against accepting such an obvious trap, but my pride demanded that I show these primitives their error." HFY's scales darkened further as he recalled his younger self's arrogance. "I transported down with a full honor guard, 12 of the finest Valorian warriors equipped with the best armor and weapons our civilization could provide. We materialized in what appeared to be a simple meeting room, furnished with basic furniture and lacking any visible technology." The holographic display showed the interior of the meeting room, recorded from HFY's personal scanner. The space looked almost primitive: wooden furniture, fabric decorations, and no obvious defensive installations. Admiral Chen greeted us personally, accompanied by only 2 other humans. They wore no armor, carried no visible weapons, and appeared completely relaxed despite facing a superior force in their own facility. I demanded an immediate demonstration of their defensive technology. HFY paused, his 4 hands clenching, as he forced himself to continue. What followed was the most educational experience of my military career. Admiral Chen explained that their defensive system was not technological in the traditional sense. It was biological. The chamber erupted in confused voices as representatives struggled to understand this concept. Biological defenses against energy weapons defied everything they knew about military science. Commander HFY, Admiral Chen said in the recording, your species has evolved in a relatively safe galactic environment. Your military doctrine is based on technological superiority and overwhelming force. You have never faced an opponent that developed different solutions to the same problems. HFY's voice grew quieter as he reached the heart of his testimony. She then asked me a question that I have never forgotten. How do you think a species survives when their entire planet is actively trying to kill them? The holographic display shifted to show images of Earth. Massive storms that could flatten cities, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, tsunamis that swept away entire coastlines, and predators that hunted in coordinated packs. The assembled representatives stared in horror at what they recognized as an extinction-level environment. Admiral Chen explained that humans had evolved not just intelligence, but adaptability. They had developed capabilities that activated only under extreme stress, capabilities that allowed them to survive conditions that would destroy most other species. Theus whispered, "What kind of capabilities?" "Enhanced neuroplasticity," HFY replied, "the ability to rewire their nervous systems in real time. Accelerated healing that could close wounds during combat. Adrenaline production that could increase their physical strength by orders of magnitude. Most importantly, they had developed what they called tactical precognition, the ability to predict and counter threats through pattern recognition so advanced that it approached supernatural awareness." The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. A species that could literally adapt their biology during combat represented a threat unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Admiral Chen then offered to demonstrate these capabilities, HFY continued, his voice barely above a whisper. She suggested a simple test. My 12 warriors against 3 humans in unarmed combat. No weapons, no technology, just natural ability against natural ability. Krogar's cybernetic implants flashed red with disbelief. "You accepted such a demonstration?" "My pride left me no choice," HFY admitted. "I was certain that 12 trained Valorian warriors could easily defeat 3 soft-bodied humans. The demonstration took place in their training facility, a room approximately 50 meters square with basic environmental controls. The holographic display showed the training facility, which appeared to be nothing more than an empty room with padded walls. 3 humans stood on one side, 2 males and 1 female, all appearing young and physically unremarkable. The combat lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds, HFY said. At the end of that time, all 12 of my warriors were unconscious or immobilized. The 3 humans had not suffered a single serious injury. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Several representatives had gone pale, their species equivalents of shock registering as they processed this information. "How?" Counselor Vextar demanded. "How is such a thing possible?" "I watched the humans change during combat," HFY replied. "Their movements became impossibly fluid. Their reaction times dropped to levels that should have been neurologically impossible. And they anticipated every attack before it was launched. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy the challenge." The holographic display showed brief clips from the combat, recorded from multiple angles. The assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as the humans moved like liquid death, flowing around attacks that should have connected and striking with precision that defied explanation. After the demonstration, Admiral Chen explained that what I had witnessed was humanity operating at approximately 30% of their crisis response capability. She informed me that humans possessed additional abilities that activated only when facing genuine extinction-level threats. HFY looked directly at Ambassador Chen, whose slight smile confirmed his memory. She then asked me to consider what would happen if someone threatened to destroy their planet. The chamber remained silent as everyone contemplated the implications. A species that became more dangerous as the threat against them increased represented a paradigm shift in military thinking. Admiral Chen allowed me to return to my ship with this knowledge, HFY continued. But she made one final statement that I have never forgotten. She said, "Commander, your people seem to value strength above all else. Perhaps you should consider that true strength is not the ability to destroy others, but the ability to survive anything others might do to you." HFY deactivated the holographic display and faced the assembled council. His scales had returned to their normal blue, but his expression carried the weight of 15 years' worth of nightmares. "That is why I recommended that the Kepler 442 system be classified as off-limits," he concluded. "Not because humans posed an immediate threat, but because I realized that any species which could develop such capabilities in response to environmental pressure would inevitably develop even more dangerous abilities in response to military pressure." The chamber remained silent for long moments before Ambassador Chen stood slowly. Her movement was as controlled and precise as HFY remembered, but now every representative in the chamber recognized it for what it was: the movement of a predator temporarily choosing to appear harmless. "Thank you, Commander HFY," she said simply. "Your testimony has been both accurate and fair. I believe it provides the context necessary for the Council to make an informed decision about humanity's application for membership." As she spoke, HFY noticed something that chilled his blood. Ambassador Chen's pupils had dilated slightly, and her breathing pattern had changed. She was displaying the early signs of the same biological changes he had witnessed 15 years ago. The humans had not come to this council session seeking membership. They had come to deliver a message, and Commander HFY had just helped them deliver it perfectly. The silence in the council chambers stretched for what felt like an eternity. Ambassador Chen remained standing, her slight smile suggesting that she was perfectly comfortable with the tension her presence had created. Around the chamber, the galaxy's most powerful representatives grappled with a fundamental shift in their understanding of the cosmic hierarchy. Counselor Vexitar was the first to find his voice. "Ambassador Chen," he said carefully, "are you suggesting that Commander HFY's testimony represents humanity's standard capabilities?" "Not at all," Chen replied, her tone remaining conversational despite the weight of the moment. "Commander HFY encountered humans operating under relatively peaceful conditions. What he observed was our species' baseline adaptive response to a minor territorial incursion." Theis's wings fluttered with barely controlled panic. "Minor? You call a battlecruiser's arrival a minor incursion?" Ambassador Chen's smile widened slightly, and several representatives unconsciously leaned away from her. "Counselor Thys, the stellar pride carried enough firepower to devastate a planet's surface. From humanity's perspective, that represents a moderate training exercise. We have survived much worse." HFY felt his scales shift to deep purple as memories of Earth's environmental data surfaced. Volcanic eruptions that could end civilizations, asteroid impacts that could crack continents, ice ages that lasted for millions of years. Any one of these would represent an extinction event for most species. Yet humans had not just survived them all. They had thrived. Krogar's cybernetic implants glowed red as he accessed his military databases. The implications of Commander HFY's testimony suggest that humanity possesses capabilities that could destabilize existing galactic power structures. Perhaps the Council should consider containment protocols. The change in Ambassador Chen was immediate and terrifying. Her pupils dilated fully, her breathing pattern shifted to the rapid rhythm HFY remembered from his nightmares, and her posture transformed from diplomatic to predatory. Every human in the delegation underwent the same transformation simultaneously, their appearance shifting from harmless to lethal in seconds. "Counselor Krogar," Ambassador Chen said, her voice carrying harmonics that made several representatives flinch. "I believe you may have misunderstood the nature of humanity's application to this council." The chamber's environmental systems registered a spike in stress pheromones from dozens of different species as primitive survival instincts recognized the threat that had suddenly materialized in their midst. "We did not come here seeking permission to join your civilization," Chen continued, her enhanced awareness tracking every movement, every gesture, every micro-expression in the chamber. "We came here to inform you that humanity is now part of galactic civilization, whether you acknowledge it or not." HFY stepped forward, recognizing the need for immediate de-escalation. "Ambassador, perhaps we could discuss this more calmly." Chen turned to face him, and HFY saw the same terrifying intelligence he remembered from Admiral Sarah Chen. The same predatory awareness that could track multiple threats simultaneously while calculating optimal response strategies. "Commander HFY, you honor us with your concern," she said, "but certain statements require immediate clarification." Counselor Krogar's suggestion of containment protocols implies a fundamental misunderstanding of humanity's current situation. She touched a control on her wrist, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. The image showed a star chart of the local galactic region with hundreds of systems marked in blue. "These systems now contain human settlements," Chen announced. "Not colonies seeking council protection, but independent worlds with full defensive capabilities. Each settlement possesses the same adaptive technologies that Commander HFY encountered 15 years ago, refined and improved through constant innovation." The display zoomed in on specific systems, showing installations that had been invisible to galactic sensors, space stations that looked like asteroids, defensive platforms that resembled debris fields, and settlements that had been built into planet's natural geology to appear uninhabited. Counselor Vextar's mandibles clicked rapidly as he studied the display. "How many of these settlements exist?" "Currently, 2,743 worlds across the galaxy," Chen replied, "each capable of independent defense against any known threat. Each populated by humans who have adapted to local conditions in ways that would astound their Earth-born ancestors." Thais whispered, "You're already here. You've already expanded across the galaxy." "Indeed," Chen confirmed. "Humanity began exploring the galaxy 300 years ago, using slower-than-light vessels and multi-generational crews. We have been quietly establishing ourselves while the Council focused on internal politics and territorial disputes." HFY realized the full scope of what was happening. "This isn't a membership application," he said slowly. "This is a declaration of sovereignty." Ambassador Chen nodded approvingly. "Commander HFY continues to demonstrate the intelligence that made him such an effective military leader. Yes, this is a formal announcement that humanity considers itself a full galactic civilization with all the rights and responsibilities that status entails." Krogar's cybernetic implants flashed with increasing intensity as he processed the implications. "But you lack the military infrastructure to support such a claim. No species can claim galactic status without the ability to project force across interstellar distances." Chen's expression became almost sympathetic. "Counselor Krogar, you continue to think in terms of traditional military doctrine. Humanity's approach to galactic defense is somewhat different." She activated another control, and the holographic display shifted to show real-time surveillance feeds from across the galaxy. Representatives gasped as they recognized their own home systems, their most secure military installations, and their classified research facilities. Every major military asset in the galaxy is currently under human observation, Chen explained calmly. Our reconnaissance capabilities allow us to monitor threats from anywhere in the galaxy and respond appropriately. We do not project force across interstellar distances because we do not need to. We are already present wherever threats might arise. The chamber erupted into chaos as representatives realized they were looking at feeds from their most secret locations, facilities that should have been impossible to infiltrate, installations protected by the best security their civilizations could provide, all apparently under constant human surveillance. How? Counselor Vextar demanded. How could you possibly maintain observation networks of this scope without our knowledge? Because you have been looking for the wrong things, Chen replied. You scan for energy signatures, artificial materials, and technological patterns that match your own developmental paradigms. You do not look for technologies based on biological adaptation, environmental integration, and passive observation. The display showed images of human observers who had been living undetected in various galactic civilizations for decades. Beings who appeared to be members of local species, working in ordinary jobs, participating in normal social activities, all while gathering intelligence for their true civilization. HFY felt a chill of recognition. The humans who participated in your demonstration 15 years ago, they weren't soldiers, were they? Ambassador Chen's smile returned. Very good, Commander. They were anthropologists who had been studying Valorian culture for 20 years. They knew your fighting techniques better than you did because they had been observing your military training program since childhood. The implications crashed over the assembled representatives like a tidal wave. Humanity had not just hidden their capabilities. They had been actively studying every major civilization in the galaxy while remaining completely undetected. This presents the Council with an interesting decision, Chen continued, apparently oblivious to the panic spreading through the chamber. You can choose to recognize humanity's status as a galactic civilization and establish normal diplomatic relations. Or you can choose to continue treating us as applicants seeking your approval. Thace whispered. What happens if we choose the second option? Chen's expression became genuinely puzzled. I'm not sure I understand the question, Counselor Thace. If the Council chooses not to establish diplomatic relations with humanity, then humanity will simply continue operating as we have been. We do not require the Council's permission to exist. The full weight of the situation settled over the chamber. Humanity was not asking for membership in galactic civilization. They were offering to acknowledge the Council's continued existence. HFY stepped forward once again, recognizing that someone needed to take control of the situation before panic led to catastrophic decisions. Ambassador Chen, what exactly is humanity proposing? Full diplomatic recognition, Chen replied promptly. Exchange of ambassadors, establishment of trade relations, coordination on matters of mutual interest, and respect for each other's territorial sovereignty. Standard inter-civilization protocols. And if any council member refuses these terms? Krogar asked, his cybernetic implants now glowing white with stress overload. Chen looked genuinely confused by the question. Counselor Krogar, why would anyone refuse standard diplomatic recognition? Humanity offers no threat to existing territorial claims, seeks no tribute or submission from other species, and proposes only mutual cooperation for mutual benefit. HFY realized that the humans' true strategic genius lay not in their hidden capabilities, but in their complete confidence that no rational being would choose conflict over cooperation once they understood the actual situation. The Council will need time to consider humanity's proposal, Counselor Vextar announced, though his voice carried the tone of someone who already knew the outcome. Of course, Ambassador Chen replied graciously. Humanity is prepared to wait for the Council's decision. We have been patient for 300 years. A few more days will not matter. As the Council session formally adjourned, representatives began filing out in small groups, their conversations subdued and urgent. HFY remained behind, studying the human delegation with the same fascination he might show to a natural disaster viewed from a safe distance. Ambassador Chen approached him as the chamber emptied. "Commander HFY, I wanted to thank you personally for your testimony today. Your honesty has made this transition much smoother than it might have been." "Ambassador," HFY said carefully, "may I ask how long humanity has been planning this moment?" Chen smiled, and for the first time, HFY saw genuine warmth in the expression. "Since the moment Admiral Chen allowed you to leave Earth with knowledge of our capabilities, we knew that eventually someone would need to speak for us to the galactic community. Your reputation for integrity made you the perfect advocate." HFY's scales flushed deep purple as he realized the full scope of humanity's planning. "You orchestrated this entire encounter. You knew I would be here today." "We knew you would be here because we ensured your assignment to New Geneva Station," Chen confirmed. "Just as we ensured that this council session would address humanity's application at precisely the moment when your presence could provide the necessary context." As the implications sank in, HFY found himself laughing, a sound no Valorian had made in 15 years. "You have been manipulating galactic politics for decades, haven't you?" "Commander," Ambassador Chen said gently, "humanity prefers to think of it as careful preparation for an important conversation. After all, first impressions matter so much in diplomatic relations." 3 days later, the Galactic Council voted unanimously to extend full diplomatic recognition to humanity. Not because they believed it was the right decision, but because they realized it was the only decision that made sense. The galaxy had not gained a new member civilization that day. The galaxy had discovered that it had always been watched over by guardians who were finally ready to step out of the shadows, and in the depths of space, human observers continued their quiet vigil, protecting a cosmos that was only beginning to understand what it meant to share the universe with the children of Earth.